Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite dark sorcerer here, and today I'd like to talk to you about spiritual work and how it can be interrupted, so to speak. I've been very active lately within my studies, practices, and everything, for an example. And I know a lot of you have been intrigued by the material putting that's been being put out. What you don't know is when you meditate and you perform spiritual work, certain mundane things interfere sometimes. Let me give you an example. A few months back, I found out that a brother of mine was ill. He's not just a coven member, a friend, and a brother to me. So you can imagine when he told me how ill he really is and what he was diagnosed with. It's kind of baffling because it's like, how do you take somebody of his stature, a true worshiper of Satan, Satanism, and devils and demons, and kind of do that to him? So we've been talking like clockwork, either daily or every other day. Over the last couple of months, it's kind of gone maybe one or two like extra days, maybe twice a week. The last time I talked to him was back on the 7th. I really didn't think much of it because he's been spending more and more time offline. Okay. So it was kind of interesting around the 13th that it was roughly around 2:56 a.m. I'm sleeping out here on the couch because my son and his mom are in the bedroom on the bed. So this literally I felt this shift in the necromantic current that I've been working in lately. It was so strong, it took me out of a dead sleep. First person I reached out to was him. To this day, I've had no reply from him. A friend of mine reached out to the local law enforcement just to do a wellness check on him. And even he believes that he was lied to. There was just some part of him thinking that he's been lied to. Now, me, I tend to go by my instincts, my guts, and what my intuition is telling me. So, and I'm pretty much 666% sure he passed that night, that early morning. And nobody had a clue until somebody had him do a wellness check. So, even though the officer came back and said, "Yeah, I spoke to him directly, fit the description to a T, and all that other stuff," oh, he's just extremely sick. Well, number one, if you're not family, they're not going to divulge that type of information to you, which tells me point blank they were blowing smoke out their ass, which means something has happened. Okay. Now, if something did happen, then they would have to reach out to the family, the next of kin, and that's all before necrology gets involved, which is basically the reporting of the death, the eulogies and stuff like that. The obituary type stuff. So when we think of this stuff, no, it hasn't really set right since. So I promised this individual that I would do a funerary rite for him. just like I did to our brother that passed away earlier this year. So I ended up doing that right on the super blood moon. And since that day, yesterday, I ended up meditating for about 2 to 3 hours, working with this new type of magic. Well, guess what? Today, I went into my inner sanctum. I've literally been unable to get into a meditative state. I've been physically unable to even begin to relax. My mind is chaotic. And as a friend of ours so colorfully put it, it feels like he's right there with us. That essence is so strong. She's right. I have to say she is right about that. But you could see where certain things in the mundane world would hinder your magical process, especially the spiritual work, which is why it's never recommended that you do any magical workings while in a state like this. The reason for that is because you could either hurt yourself, your client, or someone else when you are trying to perform, say, for an example, let's say a lust ritual or a compassion ritual. Okay. You could do a misfire if you're doing a destruction ritual. So, and this is because you're not centered, you're not focused, you're not harnessing that current because your mind and your thoughts aren't something else. It would be like casting. Let me just put it to you this way: so many white light type practitioners on social media and Facebook would sit there and tell you, "How do I go about casting a spell?" or "How how how do I rescind a curse because I feel guilty about sending that curse to that individual?" Okay, these type of thoughts are hindrances to your work when you're doing any form of destruction rituals. Because that, number one, would come back on you. Now if it's coming from a client, okay, it would bypass you and go directly to that client. Okay. So there's a lot of factors that play into effect when your mind and your thoughts are not equal. Okay, they're not harmonized. So that's basically what my day has been like today. It's really my thoughts. I woke up this morning almost feeling hollow inside, almost like there's just something missing there. And I know exactly what it is. It's the not knowing if he was actually dead or if he's alive. And the cops just aren't, telling you. Even my sister and I were talking about this last night. So it's that unknowing. So, I mean, if you have family members that have disappeared or, kidnapped or whatever, guess what? It's the same exact thing. It's gonna be on your mind. So you're not gonna be able to harmonize yourself. You're not gonna be able to perform any type of sorcery that day because it's just not gonna get you into that mood, that frame of mind that is needed for magical processes. So magical workings are definitely going to be afflicted when your mind and your body is not harmonized and in balance to perform these things. So the most I could do today is work in my spiritual journey, my journal. That's all I could do so far today. I couldn't meditate. Every time I go to study, I mean, let me show you this. Okay, this is all my books. Okay, I've got I've got a book bag down here full of books that I've been studying and reading lately. Even with all these up here by me, I have not been able to focus to even begin to study. I haven't been able to focus on meditation because of this. So the most I can do is just type in my journal, lay my thoughts out there, and let it go. That's all I can do. See, if you get into one of these states, you got to find a way to make it an outlet. Perhaps it's the universe's way of saying, right now is not the time to be doing this. Maybe the universe is trying to tell you, you need a day off. Well, if that's the case, then take that day off. Don't bother studying that day. Just take it off, try to relax, regroup, focus yourself, reharmonize yourself, rebalance yourself, because that's the only way you're going to be able to go forward. Now, personally, I've been around death just about my entire life since I was in fourth grade. I've been around a lot of death, more than one person should be. Not because of all the friends I've lost, not because of all the coworkers I've lost, or the family members I've lost, but also covens that I've lost. Okay? People either walking out or dying off. Either way, death has played a huge part in my life. So, right here is an example of why you should not do any kind of spiritual work when you're not balanced. Remember that. All right? So, as I wrote in my journal, I'm thinking to myself, well, I've had a little too many distractions going on. I've had too much of this going on. So, I'm going to take a break from this and I'm going to try it down the road. Let's say later tonight. Maybe I'll be harmonized again to be able to get into meditation, to do the type of sorcery that I began yesterday. Okay. But if not, no big deal. I'll try it again tomorrow. Either way, the fact that you put your best foot forward, the gods, the demons, the jinn, the Orisha, the Loa, they will not hold that against you because you did your best. You actually put the effort in to try to dissolve that chaotic mind. You did your best to try to get into that meditational state to further your magical aims. But right now is not the time. There's a reason for it. Pull out your cartomancy deck, perform some rituals, perform some readings. Try to find the root of it. Try to figure out what's going on. But if you know what's going on, that's a whole nother ball game right there. That's a whole nother ball game. So the best thing you could do, why? Why is it bothering you? Is it a time for grieving? Is it a time for questioning? Is it a time for why is it afflicting you in such a way? To try to figure that out. Well, that's the key. That's the trick. That's the $1,000,000 question. Why am I out of balance? What about this is bothering me so bad that I can't even harmonize a thought to even begin to get into a meditative state? See, that's the example right there. Why? The answer is quite simple. I was close to this brother, just like I was close to the other brother. And when you've had enough death in your life, eventually you're going to have to sit back and clean out your own skeletons, your own mortality, your own, what Christopher Pinsiak so colorfully points out as the shadow aspect of the mind, the back of the mind, where we put day to day events until further use, when you can deal with them. So if you have afflictions, guess what? That's where they go. You don't want to deal with it right then. Guess what? Bam, back of the mind. So here, eventually, if you don't deal with them, it's going to erupt like Yellowstone. Could be in a positive way, it could be in a negative way. But it'll definitely be in an unexpected manner. So you got to deal with it. You got to deal with it. So the question is, where to begin? Where do you begin to go about dealing with this? And you don't know if the person's dead or alive because the cops are playing fuck games with you. You got multiple people who around that same time had that exact same feeling that shift in the current. You know as much as I know. So why not step up? Why not trust your instincts? In fact, why should you trust the cops in general? You know how they operate, but here you're in a whole nother country. So what the fuck can you do, right? So what can you do? Truth is nothing. But as I told a friend of mine, just sit back a week or two. It's been reported. If a number of people reported it, guess what? They're going to go take a look. They're going to do that well check, on that person. And eventually, guess what? They're gonna do it, and they're gonna find him or her on the ground, dead. And then they're gonna figure out, all right, now this is a crime scene. We got to figure out, did this person die of natural causes, or was this foul play? Now, once that investigation's over, then it goes to the coroner, then it goes to the funeral home. So you're looking at it probably about a week or two just before you actually get the obituary out there on social media. That's necrology, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, where the reporting of a death takes place. Because before that, while they're still alive, you're dealing with a process of death, like out of the Tibetan Book of the Dead or that of thanatology. So you're following that stages of death. Some of us have already noticed the signs, the deadening signs in the eyes. Some of us have even felt that current and heard the pain in the person's voice, the suffering. So we know what's coming. And then that one moment that sends those ripples out, the death, the expulsion of that energy, sends it out into the universe, the multiverse. And you wake up out of a dead sleep because you felt it. And the first person you think of, gotta text that person. Hey, you okay? How are you doing today? What's going on? Are you okay? You see, when you've been around death a long time, that's what transpires. It's kind of like being with somebody for years, and all of a sudden your partner croaks. Doesn't matter if they're right there next to you or you're across country. You're going to know if something transpired with that individual. In this case, it could be a brother or sister, but you feel it. So how do you go about proving it? How do you go about calming yourself and finding your center? One way would be to journal it. Try to figure out why it's bothering you. Why is it bugging you? You see, this is thanatology. This is spiritual work. This is where reverends and pastors and bishops and satanic priests literally go out of their way to get to understand death. This is where you get to understand the spirit. How do you come to terms with a lot of things? So yeah, this has been my day. In fact, it's been my last few months. Not only have I've been going through things, my better half have been going through things. And then, you know, you got other things going on. And now this. There's a lot to process. So if you recognize these signs going on in your own life, find the root cause, reflect upon them, jot it down in a journal, and go from there. Have a good one.